back at the Vernal pool where we were looking at the spotted salamanders and the wood frogs the other night. It's been a few days, a little bit easier to see out here in the daylight, and thought it'd be a good time to come back and see what kind of evidence was here from the night that there was so much activity. So what we have here is a whole bunch of egg masses, sort of a mass of masses. And these here are all wood frog eggs. And there are a few ways that I can tell that. One of them has to do with the location of the eggs. They're pretty close to the surface of the water. They're all laid attached to some type of vegetation, but the salamanders' egg masses tend to be lower in the water. We're going to see some of those in just a few minutes. But you can see how there are so many packed right here. There are so many eggs in each egg mass. Anywhere, probably the smallest number would be about 500 to 1,000 is kind of normal, but up to 2,000 is possible. So a lot of eggs in one mass and a lot of masses bunched together. So it's really warm where that is, and the sun is reaching it because it's really close to the surface of the water. Some of the other things, I'm going to step very carefully in here. These are close enough to the edge that I can get to them and share some things with you about them without causing too much disturbance. So, friends, if you're able to look nice and close here with me, I'm just going to reach in. I'm not going to take them out, but I'm going to reach in so that you can have a closer look at what they're like. If I took this all the way out, I would detach it from the vegetation, and I don't want to do that. So I'm just kind of reaching down in here and holding on still to the vegetation, but lifting it up. So you see all of these black spots in here? Each one of those is going to become a tadpole. Isn't that amazing? And you can see all of these separate eggs with the tadpole larva right in the middle of it. So that's one egg, that's another egg, that's another egg. So you can see how if we counted them, we could get up to that big number pretty quickly. So if I put my hand all the way down and if I lifted this all the way out, you can see that they could easily start to detach and actually kind of drip through my fingers. So I'm not going to do that. I'm going to place it really gently right back down there where that is. But that's an excellent example of what a wood frog egg mass would look like. Let's head on over and take a look at some of the spotted salamander masses. All right, and here we have some eggs that look really different than what we were just looking at. Remember, we were looking at the wood frog eggs that had so many eggs in each egg mass, and they were right near the surface of the water, and they were a little bit like jelly when I put my hand under them. Well, I want you to take a close look at some of these with me and notice that these egg masses are also attached to vegetation. They're deeper down in the water. They are smaller masses. They hold fewer eggs, not as many as the wood frogs. And when I place some in my hand, you're going to notice that they are not quite as runny as those wood frog eggs. So let's take a close look at them. All right, so these here, my friends, actually were down a little lower. They're attached to this piece of vegetation. And I just scooched it over a little closer for us so that I could put my hand under this and you could see that this here has a little bit more of a casing all the way around it. Can you notice that? So we have all of the eggs clumped together, but along with them being clumped together, there's sort of like this whole gelatin all around that's holding them together a little bit tighter than the wood frogs. And there aren't so many in each mass. So I'm going to carefully just let that float back down towards the bottom where it was, still attached to the same piece of vegetation. Let's take a close look at this one right here. I'm not going to be able to pull this one in, but I see it down in the water, attached to a stem, and I think it's just an excellent example of how the eggs themselves look different than the wood frog eggs. They're a little bit more of just that round dot there, and how they have that whole casing around it. It's almost like a little bit of a cloak that's covering them all together. We'll come back. For the next couple weeks, we'll take a look, see how they are developing. If you take a look right over here, where you see some of our red-spotted newts swimming, they're actually climbing a stem plant that has some frog eggs on it. One of the things I'm wondering about that red spotted salamander that's on that stem is I'm wondering if it's possible if that's a female and if she might be laying her eggs there. The red spotted salamander and the wood frog both lay their eggs in water on vegetation, but they do it in really different ways. So what's going to happen with the salamander here is she's going to lay individual eggs, one at a time, up and down the stems of some of the plants in the pond. And I don't know if that's what she's doing right now, but it could be. Hey friends, as I look more closely at this, take a look with me. I think our salamander friend is doing something other than laying eggs. I mean, maybe she's laying eggs too, but she's also snacking on eggs. So, good thing that wood frog laid so many. Hey friends, what a find. This is the spot we were looking at just a few days ago with the wood frog eggs. Do you remember? It was so full of eggs, and we saw one red-spotted newt nibbling on a few eggs. Only a few days have passed, and you can see that there are now lots of red-spotted newts over here dining on this delicacy, and there are very few what we would call viable eggs left. They basically have eaten the larva that would have become the tadpole in there. So this is part of the whole ecosystem here of how living and non-living things are interacting in this particular environment. So very exciting to get to see. A little bit sad for all those tadpoles that could have been, for sure, but really quite a sight to have been able to see this over the past few days and see what has happened. Hey, and friends, here we've got a great example not only of a whole bunch of egg masses. You're probably recognizing them by now, wood frog egg masses, all together, keeping warm, all clustered. But we have some at different stages of development. So some of these were laid longer ago than others, and those particular tadpoles are closer to developing than some. So this egg mass over here on your left is more expanded, it's filled out more, the color has changed, and if you could see in closely, and I'm not sure if you can, but if you can see in closely, you'd see that the little larvae actually are more developed than the ones here on the right, which are more just like still little black circles. So we can come back and keep checking this out over the next week or so, but my prediction, my theory, is we would start to see this one hatch out before we would see this one hatch out. And that is all if the red-spotted newts don't eat them first. So wood frog eggs take about 3 weeks to hatch. Then they live as tadpoles for about 2 months. And during that time, they're using gills to breathe. Before they can actually leave the vernal pool, they have to absorb these gills and develop lungs so that they can breathe oxygen from the air. The other thing they have to do is grow strong legs, strong enough to help them be able to hop away. Spotted salamander eggs can take up to 8 weeks to hatch, so much longer than the wood frog.
Like the wood frog, the spotted salamander also uses gills to breathe when it's living at the vernal pool. The spotted salamanders can actually take up to 4 months to develop their lungs and to develop legs strong enough to be able to walk away from the vernal pool to begin their new life in the forest. For the remainder of their lives, both of these amphibians, the wood frog and the spotted salamander, will live in woodlands, except for a very short period of time every spring when they will return to the vernal pool to breed, and their young will repeat this amazing metamorphosis. If you have enjoyed this video, please visit our website to learn more about what we do and consider making a donation.